Hello, and welcome to Message in the Middle with Marianne. We all know that life is hard, right? It's messy, it's unpredictable, but it can be wonderful all at the same time. My hope is that we can take a deep dive into self-development topics and explore life's lessons through book clubs, conversations, and interviews. And together, we can uncover the lessons that others have already learned to help us navigate this crazy, wonderful ride called life. Hello and welcome to Message in the Middle. I'm your host, Marianne, and because you are here today tuning into this podcast, I know you're the kind of person who will be open to reconsidering what it truly means to recover from trauma. Open to exploring why recovery doesn't have to be something that happens years later on a therapist's couch and instead can happen in real time, in the middle of uncertainty, in the deep, raw center of life's most overwhelming moments. Joining me for this conversation is Emma Churchman. Emma is a nationally certified trauma chaplain, leadership mentor, executive consultant, and the founder of the Trauma Recovery Certification Program, a groundbreaking training for professionals who want to address trauma at its roots and not just manage the symptoms. She's also written several books. Her 2025 bestseller, The Deep End of Hope in the Wake of Hurricane Helene, takes readers on an unforgettable journey of spiritual resilience during one of nature's most recent catastrophic events. Her most recent memoir, Unshattered: Surviving My Mother's 123 Personalities and Transforming a Legacy of Abuse, is an invitation to rewrite the stories we inherit. And her third book, Navigating the Deep End: Resilient Leadership in a Volatile World, expected in June of 2026, explores navigating leadership in crisis. Whether you're listening during a season of personal change, healing from a life you didn't choose, or searching for meaning and strength in the middle of it all, this conversation will stretch you and your understanding of what it means to become resilient and to truly heal. Emma, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Marianne. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, I'm delighted to have you and dig into this topic and some of your experiences. I thought about how we should start, and I kept coming back to the word trauma. And many people hear that word and immediately think of these extreme events. And I'm not sure it always has to be these extreme events. So I thought maybe we could kick off with you level setting on what you consider and how you define trauma.
Absolutely. Yeah. Trauma is such a stigmatized word. And frankly, I don't like it particularly because it does have that idea that there has to be something catastrophic.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is I was delving into the research behind trauma. One of the things that I learned from psychotraumatologist Peter Levine is that trauma is not defined by the event, it's defined by the symptoms. So, for example, someone could go through a horrific, devastating natural disaster like we did here in Western North Carolina and have PTSD, not be able to sleep, have a lot of anxiety. There could be someone else on the other side of the country who knew someone who went through that same disaster, who's having the same symptoms, but they didn't actually go through the event themselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And a good distinction. I don't know if I've thought about it that way. And I guess similarly, and this kind of leads me right to my next question, is that can also lead me to think why common experiences can sometimes also be labeled as trauma, because I guess it would be how you receive that experience and the symptoms that come from it. Is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I really encourage people to do as they are having an experience that they define as traumatic is to really look at what is the story that you're telling yourself about this event, about what happened. Are you telling yourself the story that this has ruined my life, right? Are you telling yourself the story that this was unexpected, but that there's a learning opportunity?
Mm.
Are you telling yourself the story that you have handled worse things, right? Like your attitude and how you're thinking about what happened has a huge impact on the symptoms that you will experience.
That's so interesting because I can't help think about then. There's certainly people that automatically go to sort of the negative. Everything's a big deal. This is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. This is going to be scarring. And then there's other people that sort of just roll with the punches a little bit more. So it sort of makes me think that, well, I guess it is. It ties back to what you said. The same thing could be happening to two people and it could be traumatic to one and not to another. And it also could mean that something that I consider fairly insignificant could be traumatic to somebody else.
Yes. And a really good example of that is, we had Hurricane Helene happen here in September 2024 here in Western North Carolina. And I live in this teeny tiny community of 300 people in rural Appalachia. I'm on top of a mountain. We've got a little fire station that's kind of the hub of our community. And I got down to the fire station on day 4, which involved bushwhacking,
Mm.
right? Like roads are gone, trees are down, mudslides are everywhere, homes are destroyed. There are rivers of water coming down the mountain in all directions. And I get myself down to the fire station to see who is still alive, right?
Mhm.
What is going on? And I say to the fire chief, I'm trained as a trauma chaplain. How can I help? And he said, oh my God, here's your first case, right? He was already inundated with a lot of people experiencing trauma. So I spent that next month doing trauma chaplaincy with folks. And it was fascinating to see how different people were responding to this natural disaster. Some people said, I'm so grateful I'm alive. Some people said, my house is gone and I will never recover, right? Like
Yeah.
your attitude has a huge impact. And I believe that it's possible to recover from trauma in real time as things are happening, as we have awareness. I'm not talking about when you're a child and you don't have a fully formed adult brain,
Mhm.
right? Like I'm not talking about that kind of trauma. I'm talking about things that happen to us as adults, and our perspective on what's happening has very significant impact on our capacity to move through a traumatic event and to survive it.
Was there a specific thing that led you to sort of coming to that belief that, because it does go sort of against, well, I haven't done all the research, but I think it goes against probably most of the mainstream thoughts
Yep.
around healing. It's not what you hear, so I have to think it goes against mainstream. So was that the event, watching all that unfold over that month, that sort of led you to think that? Like
Yes.
what made that light bulb go on for you?
Yeah, that was part of it. And also, 8 weeks before the hurricane, my brother Alex died by suicide.
Mm.
He was my second brother to die by suicide.
Mm.
I had a brother die 3 years earlier than that.
Wow.
My father died by suicide decades ago.
Wow.
And then 2 weeks after the hurricane, my third and final brother died by suicide. And I thought,
Wow.
what the hell is happening? Right. Like, what is going on to have that level of trauma happen, you know, to have two suicides before and after this disastrous event where we had no power, no internet, our cell phones weren't working for weeks and weeks and weeks, right? And we're still recovering over a year later. And I said to myself, actually, this is what happened. My husband, Jeff, is from New Orleans and he lived through Hurricane Katrina. And I said to him a couple days after our hurricane, I said, I can't do this. I cannot deal with this level of shit, excuse my language, that's happening. And he looked me square in the eye. Hurricane Katrina was 20 years ago. And he said, you need to figure it out
Mm.
because we are in this. And I thought, oh, he's right. And I thought, I have to figure out how to survive this.
Wow.
I can't be in this level of devastation.
Yeah, I mean, what's the alternative? I guess in that specific situation, it's probably, I hate to say it easier, but I'm gonna. It's probably easier to recognize that you have no choice. You have no choice. You got to get through this, right?
Right.
Versus the suicides or being abused or something else. Maybe it doesn't seem quite so clear that this is all right, I gotta just push through. I gotta survive this.
Right.
But that seems like a perfect example of really being able to recognize a shift in perspective can really take you over to that next step or kind of change that trajectory for you. What does that look like? You work with a lot of people that are going through trauma of all kinds. What does that look like what does real-time processing of trauma look like in more everyday examples? So, not a big catastrophic event.
Right.
What does it look like in sort of, real life? That is real life, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, for example, you and I were, before we started this interview, we were talking about each of us has a family member. Excuse me, I'm having a hard time with my voice today. Each of us has a family member who's going through a significant illness right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is a form of trauma, not just for the person going through the illness, but for the family members.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the first step is identifying where in trauma recovery are you in? What phase are you in? And the initial phase, which is rescue, is really about like attending to your basic needs. Do you have food? Do you have water? Do you have shelter? Are you sleeping through the night? Right? Getting those needs attended. A lot of times what happens is someone will experience something traumatic and they'll immediately want to be somewhere other than where they are.
Sure.
Right. Let me just skip attending to my basic needs because I would like to be over this now.
Mm-hmm.
I would like for it to be in a different reality.
Yeah.
And we miss the basics. We don't have a strong foundation to build from.
Hmm. I know one of the things that you talk about is, and you help people with, is focusing on the root instead of the symptoms, which is interesting because we started the conversation talking about the symptoms being sort of the definition of trauma.
Yeah.
But your work focuses on trying to get to the root of it. Unwind that a little bit for me.
Yeah. And that really is about changing the story, right? So the data is I have a family member diagnosed with cancer. My family member is going through chemotherapy. It's happening during the holidays, right? So those are the facts. And then there's what am I making that mean? I'm making that mean that, this is the worst Christmas ever, right?
Yeah.
Or that thank God this person could get into chemotherapy as quickly as humanly possible, even though it happened during Christmas, right? So when I talk about getting to the root, it's about what is the story? What's the meaning that we're making about the facts of the traumatic event?
Okay. And then that helps us unwind or discover the work we need to do.
Right.
If we can understand the story we're telling, then we could work on what other stories might be possible.
Right.
And start shifting that.
Yeah. And this isn't about gaslighting or whitewashing, right? This isn't saying, oh my gosh, you were raped, but try to make that a positive experience. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you are the human being who has the power, who has the autonomy to create whatever reality you desire. You are that powerful. And you get to decide whether or not what happened is going to define your reality moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's important. So I know a lot of the work you do is with leadership, high-performing professionals. Do you find that people can disguise the symptoms of their trauma in their performance? What I mean is maybe they're super high functioning. Maybe they're the reliable one, the always on one, or maybe they're the kind of ice queen. I'm trying to think of different personas that have come up at work for me that I know of. Is that sometimes a way of masking, hiding behind what you're carrying with you?
Yeah, 100%. And unfortunately, our society here in the US rewards that kind of behavior.
Yeah.
The high performing, the micromanaging, the always working, the not bringing emotions into the conversation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So part of what we need to do is change how we think about what leadership needs to look like. And that's part of why I'm writing this third book, Navigating the Deep End Resilient Leadership in a Volatile World, because those assumptions or expectations are outdated.
Sure.
And we have got to find a different way to lead, because the way we lead has a huge impact on on not just ourselves, but our organizations, our teams, how we all function together. And leaders need to be models of healthy behavior.
It's so interesting. I just actually had some of this conversation with Dr. Mickey Fitch Collins, a leadership development expert. And I'll go ahead and put the links to that episode in the show notes as well, because there are a lot of commonalities on these discussion points. It's the soft skills, they really matter. It's relationships that make or break it these days. And, your ability to have a high emotional IQ and just really read the room and all the things that bring your emotions to the table and sort of have empathy for people, all those things which you were supposed to sort of leave at the door years ago. It's so interesting watching that shift, but it's a good shift in my opinion.
It is a good shift. Yeah. And I've seen it happen significantly since COVID. As so much of the workforce is now remote, what that requires is actually more relationship.
Yeah.
Because what used to be those casual relationships at the water cooler, going to lunch together in the hallway, what have you, those aren't available.
Yeah.
And so that ability to be in a relationship with another human being who you work with is even more significant in a remote workforce.
Such a true statement. And I think that where that's not working, it's because people have not seen the model for how to make it work. You actually have to go out of your way to build those relationships, to keep those connections real. It's so much easier to be in an office and just sort of, bump into somebody randomly throughout the day, throughout the week, or have an office next to somebody versus be hundreds of miles away. And the only time you can connect is if you send a message or you reach out to them. And you have to learn that skill of really making those connections and keeping those connections. It's again, and it's interesting shift. But I personally am one that would vote and say that it can work. You just have to put the time in and teach people how to make it work. But
yes, exactly.
That has to happen.
Yeah.
I'm interested to know, again, back to the work you do in that kind of, in that space in the corporate world, you talk about having trauma-informed workspaces. What does that mean? What does that look like?
Yeah. So statistics. By the age of 75, 67% of people on this planet will have experienced some kind of traumatic event. So that's not an insignificant number. And people bring their trauma from their life into the workspace, right? When you're working intimately with people, your triggers, what's happened to you in the past, is going to come up. So when you have a trauma-informed workplace, you're holding an awareness that people are bringing their crap into the workspace.
Yeah.
That's normal and that's to be expected. And when that can be acknowledged, it lowers the level of anxiety and in fact can improve performance rather than saying, keep that stuff out.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't matter. When you bring it in, when you bring it to the surface, when you allow it to be a part of the conversation, it stops running the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, it's such a change. I think we probably grew up in the same times, and the leave it at the door. Like, people weren't expected to bring, of course they bring their life in with them. Their life, you can't just check it at the door. You're thinking about whatever happened the night before, the day before, the hour before you walked into work. So it's so interesting how the conversation is changing, and we're starting to be able to understand that that needs to be something that people are aware of. And it's okay to say, I'm having a really off day. I don't, maybe I don't want to do a lot of peopling today, or maybe I, whatever, maybe you need to just adjust what you were going to do today and do it tomorrow instead, or whatever the situation. But I think being able to, like you said, have that conversation, it's such a difference, such a difference.
Yeah. And again, especially when leaders can model that,
Mm-hmm.
when they don't feel like they have to be perfect, when they don't feel like they have to leave it at the door,
Mm-hmm.
when they can say, hey, I'm having a hard week. I've got some stuff going on.
Yeah.
I'll let you all know that this is happening. It's beautiful modeling.
I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about resilience. I think that one of the things you talk about, and I want to ask you how it ties to that journey of going through that awful event, but many people think resilience is bouncing back. And I think, you say that it's more around evolution. It's around evolving forward into your next version of yourself, or the next reality of the environment. Again, I'm curious, did you come to that realization while going through that event, or is there something that led to this? Was it trainings or whatever? Did it come before or after that event? Because I could see you sort of coming to that conclusion during it, but I'm curious how that played out for you.
Yeah. No, I mean, it started in my childhood. I was raised by a mother with 123 diagnosed personalities, and then an alcoholic, abusive father with my three younger brothers. And so I had to come to terms with how that impacted me as a child and then as an adult. And then I had to look at, who do I want to become as a result of these experiences? Who do I want to evolve into? And for me, it was becoming a minister, becoming a trauma chaplain, becoming a leadership consultant, because these are ways that I could evolve my traumatic experiences in my childhood and use them for good in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, that is very much how I define resilience. It's who you get to become, who you are becoming as a result of what you have experienced. And most people on this planet do not want to evolve. Most people want to keep the status quo. Most people want to return to how things were beforehand. But what's happening on our planet is our world is speeding up very significantly. With natural disasters, they have increased by 300% in the past decade. Our technology is speeding up with artificial intelligence.
Yes.
Our political system here in the US, I think it's about to collapse.
Yes, to say the least.
There are a lot of things that are changing really quickly.
Yes.
And we've got to figure out whether or not we're going to get on the bandwagon, because some of us are not going to survive all of these changes.
Well, and someone once said to me, and it's so true, that if somebody doesn't want to change, they're going to be the only thing that doesn't change. People that don't want to change, because everything around them, all the things you gave are great examples, but even more, I mean, everything is changing around us all the time. So we might as well learn how to do that as well and get comfortable with it.
Exactly.
But I do think you're right. Most people like to stay on those well-known paths.
Exactly.
You mentioned your mom, and you mentioned her 123 personalities. And obviously that's what the book entails, a conversation around that. I can't even imagine what that was like. The main thing that came to me when I was learning about you was, did you know as a kid? Like, did you know that this wasn't quote unquote normal? Did you have any idea what this this was and that she was all these people or all these personalities. What did that look like for you as a child?
Yeah, I didn't know. I thought it was normal when I was little for your mother to get on the floor and play with dolls and a tea set with you, right? And that was some of her younger alters would come out and play with me. And I didn't really know until she was formally diagnosed when I had just turned 15, I think.
Mm,
And at that point, that's when the alters started introducing themselves by name to me.
wow.
Before I had seen them, but I didn't know that they were separate people or separate personalities.
Wow. So fascinating now when you look back and as you're writing the book. Gosh, I have to think. So as a kid, when your mom's on the floor playing dolls with you, that's probably fabulous. Like you're thinking,
Exactly.
this is great.
Exactly.
I have a playmate. Who cares, right? But now looking back with all you know, gosh, there must have been a lot there to have to deal with that you didn't even realize you were dealing with.
Right. Right. Looking back now, I can see, okay, there were times when there was a 5-year-old personality driving the car. Not very safe.
Wow. Yeah. Right. Wow. Is there anything that stands out? Any like core memory that stands out? Is it just a whole bunch of these little pieces?
Before or after she was diagnosed?
I guess either.
Yes. I mean, it's a lot of, playtime. There are also when she started to have memories and realize that she was sexually abused, which is what caused the alternate
Mm,
personalities. There are some pretty terrible memories of her being depressed and suicidal.
gosh, that's awful. I'm sorry you went through that. That had to be at times really difficult to go through, but I can see how you use that experience to help other people now. So that's the positive on it.
Yeah. And, if I can live through that and be where I am today, then I know it's possible
Hmm.
for so many people to heal from their own traumatic experiences.
So what do you say to the person who is currently sitting between the life they planned or they envisioned that they thought they would have and the reality they're living, which aren't lined up?
Right.
What do you say? And then do you have a suggestion for sort of how they can start stepping into that new evolution, even if they're scared?
Yes. Yeah. So, really, what we're talking about here is moving from a space of reaction to a space of creation.
Mm,
So, what I would do is remind that person how powerful they are and that they can create whatever reality they desire. They do not have to stay in that space of reacting to what's happening around them,
hmm.
right? Because I'm going to get a little woo woo here for a minute. We are co creating our reality with the entire universe. And we forget how powerful we are.
Hmm.
So, part of if you want to get out of where you are right now and move to a different reality, first you have to decide what you want that reality to be, and then give that reality more attention than what you're giving right here.
Yeah, to step out of it. So what do you say to the person who doesn't know, who just knows they're not happy anymore where they're at, or they know there's something more meant for them, but they don't really know how to define it?
Well, part of it is giving yourself permission to even
Hmm.
think that way,
That's fair.
right? A lot of us don't ask ourselves the question of what do I really want? What would bring me happiness?
Hmm.
What is my deepest desire?
Hmm.
So spending some time with those questions is a beautiful way to start.
I like that. Well, I usually like to end with asking my guest if there's only one message that you could leave. You want them to walk away with just one. What would it be?
You are the creator of your own reality. You really are. And if you're interested in working through a traumatic event that's still impacting you, I want to invite you to join my trauma recovery level 1 program for free. It's a 28-day online course. It's self-led where you get to learn to heal your own trauma and create your own story. So you can join that 28-day course by going to emmachurchman.com/trauma.
I love that. That's a great offer. Well, thank you for sharing that. I was going to ask you, where's the best spot for people to find you, where you're the most active about all the things you're doing? Your website then?
Yep. And you can find me on all social media platforms except for TikTok.
And we'll put the links that you shared with us in the show notes for everybody. Well, thank you so much for sharing this and for the work you're doing, the books you've written, and trying to share those topics with people to get them to sort of look at things differently. I appreciate that. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. You asked wonderful questions.
Well, thank you. I try. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode of Message in the Middle. I hope you found something in this conversation that reminded you that you're not alone and that midlife isn't about winding down. It's about waking up. You're not done. You're just becoming. If this episode speaks to you at all, please share it with a friend who needs to hear it. And if you're enjoying the show, I'd be so grateful if you could take a moment to leave a review. It really helps other women find this community and this podcast. Until next time, take care of yourself.